Hello, I'm Martin and this is 3D Printing Iceland. Today I'm gonna install more lights in the printer cabinet. The lights I got are 4 lights from IKEA. I have a set of those already in the cabinet, but I want to have more light, so I bought 2 sets more. I also bought a light strip from IKEA, 2 sets of those, and because this has its power, each of those has a power plug, I bought a power strip, just a standard power strip, and my plan is to install that in the cabinet today and fix the power strip to the cabinet and have everything there connected, so I can use the power switch to turn off and on everything in the cabinet. I got the printer started really recently and it has been printing quite a few things for me, and mostly I've been printing spare parts for the printer itself. I got a ABS from Farm that is orange, that is very similar to the orange color of the parts on the printer, and I've basically been printing all the mechanical parts that if they break I will have to replace it with those. I'm not going to print the Rambo case or the LCD, because even something happened to that I can use the printer, but I have a few things printing now, and but I basically have very good result printing with a Farm ABS, and it was a few items I had problem with in the beginning. That was parts they were warping when after the first layer, and the problem was that the first layer was not down enough on the print bed, so I had to lower the nozzle a little bit and get the first layer very good. And after I fixed that, that was working better. I also increased I had a problem with the layers around the circles. They were not connecting to the infill, so I had to change the extrude multiplier to 1.1 to get everything connecting better. And I had this problem and posted a picture on the Prusa Facebook group, and after maybe half an hour 2 or 3 guys pointed out what I had to do to fix this problem. So I did those changes, and then everything worked fine, and then I just have been printing those parts. I printed I printed a spool holder for the printer to be inside the cabinet. This is the prototype, and this I found out this length here was not enough. In the working version this is a bit longer, and also this base is a little bit thicker. The reason for that was the screws I had were too long, and instead of going to the hardware store and buying new screws, I just increased the thickness of this part and printed it again. So that saved me a trip. So that's the beauty of 3D printing, I guess, to just prototype and find your best results. I also printed let me see. I also printed this statue of my great-grandfather. This was in PLA, and this is a bigger version of it, and it prints really nice. It is I scanned it in using my camera taking photos of the original object and made a 3D model and then printed it out. It printed out like this, standing on the small feet I created. It has really high quality all the way to the top, so I was really happy with this, and I might print more of those to give out or sell to some of my relatives that are descendants of him, if they want. Then I created this is an object for my refrigerator. It's a support for the glass shelf. The glass goes in this groove here, and then this side goes into a groove in the refrigerator sides, so it holds the glass, and the original parts were breaking, and because the refrigerator is really old. So I had few runs with this. Had to change a little settings on the model, and I think in the third print I got it right and printed for each side those items. Then I also printed a small model of myself. This is a 3D scan I made using images. So this is a really small model, but I'll probably do a bigger one at some point. This was actually my first real print. The first print I did was a Batman logo that was on the SD card. That was the first item I printed, and what I actually did with it, I broke it in half just to feel the strength of the PLA. So it's in the garbage somewhere now, but this is actually my first real print. And yeah, then I printed this and other items. I haven't printed out any classical Benzies or the Adelita Dragon or some classic prints, but I wanted to get those prints out of the way, because if something would break, I would have spare parts. So that was my priority. But I think that's about it. I tried. Yeah, so this is quite a number of items. I think I've spent 3 days printing so far, and everything has been going really well. It took some adjustments to get those items correct with the settings in Slicer, but when I got the help from the Facebook group, I had the notes of what settings to change, and that went well. This was a prototype also of the shelf, and this was a rigid ink filament, and I have to adjust the extrusion multiplier. I think there was too much filament going out, but those are Prusa PLA with copper color, and I used the default settings in Slicer for those, but I still have to adjust for this filament from rigid ink, but I'll do that at some later time. Yeah, so other than that, this is what I've been doing. So now I got those lights, and I'm gonna install those in the cabinet when this print is done, and I will make some images of the process. So I hope you enjoy the video. So thanks for now. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do a total rework of the power supply situation. I have now 2 strips on the floor with all the cables from the lights and the printer and the computer and the mic, not the mic, the lights. Then I'm gonna fix another one like this at the end of the table, so it will be like this, on the end here, and that will be the main power supply that is over there now on the floor. And then I have this, and this is the one that the lights go. I want to have a separate switch for the lights, because when I'm working here I'm not normally having the lights on, so I'm gonna fasten that also under the table and get all the cables from the floor, so dust and cat hair and everything that collects on the floor won't be in the cables all the time. Yeah, and I think I'll get that straightened out before I install the lights in the cabinet, because I was counting there was too many wires coming out of the cabinet, and it will be really cluttered to have the power strips outside the cabinet. So I think I'll redesign that and get back to you when I have installed the power supply, and then I'm going to install the lights in the cabinet. Now I've finished installing the lights in the enclosure, and also I put up the power strips for everything that's on this table up underneath the plate, and also a power strip with a switch for the main lights, so I can turn them on and off with one switch without interfering anything else. I also moved all the cables that were on the floor. They are now snug up under the table, and inside the cabinet I have the power strip for everything that's inside of the enclosure. So I'm gonna switch cameras and show you inside. So here inside I have the concrete block as before. I have moved it in that position that if I take the printer out and put it back in, I made small markers here to know where to place the printer, so it won't interfere with the back, and the power connector into the power supply is not squeezed by the side. So in this position everything is correct. I installed a lot of new lights. I had 4 lights like this before, but now I have 3 on this side and 2 here on top, 1 in the back as before, and the other one in the back there. Now I have 3 lights here in the 4 lights here in the top, and 2 lights over here. And then I also installed those power LED stripe on each side, so if I plan to do a GoPro time-lapse with a camera over here, I'll get more light from this direction going into the prints, so I can place a camera at a low angle with good lighting. I also changed out the tube I had. I had this short tube up here for the filament to be guided from the spool, and I noticed the filament was sometimes binding on the corner or at the end here, so I cut a longer tube and put it instead here, and now the filament can move with the printhead and not have a straight bend over here. So I think this will be better. I also moved the spool holder a little bit down. It was up here, and moved it a little bit down so I could have this straight above the spool. So this is in the middle of the spool, so that won't grab on this end when the filament is going from the spool. Down here I have the power strip and all the cables for the lights. There's a lot of cables with those lights, and I bundled them up down there, so it's quite snug down there. I had the lights with some cables on the top at first, but they were starting to drop down, so I decided to have everything down here. So I don't think it will interrupt the time lapses if the camera is at the bottom and is showing the print. I think this whole area will be covered by the printer, so I think it's gonna look quite nice when I put the printer in. Previously I did a short time lapse, but then I had the big studio lights that I have over here turned on, and light hitting inside the cabinet, but I want to do time lapse with just the lights in the cabinet, and I will do a test, not a test print, but I'll carry on printing spare parts with the orange ABS and do a time lapse that I'll put on this video. So I'm gonna start that and talk to you when the print has finished. now the print has finished. Actually finished yesterday, and I've been printing several items tonight and today. So this is the print. It's just a part of the Prusa printer. Not very exciting part to have in a time lapse, but the point was more to try out the light setup in the cabinet. So this finished quite well. I still have to mount the GoPro camera in the cabinet, and that probably will be my time-lapse camera. I was just using the webcam mounted. That's actually fastened over here, and the arm was going down to the glass here, but that's not very good. And I'm moving around, so I want to have the camera inside the cabinet. So that will be a project to print out a GoPro mount. I found an object on Thingiverse that is designed for this, so I'll try that out. I've been printing more of those. My great-grandfather statues. I posted on my family Facebook group with my relatives. If they wanted me to print it out, let me know, and I estimated a price for them. So with some material cost and some labor on my half, because it was quite a task to scan this in with the images and get everything correct. So I will get some extra money for printing those statues out, and I think I have to print 100 of them to pay the printer, but at least if some of my family members will get this item, that we only have a few original statues around, so if more family members will be able to get this, that will be great. So that I've been printing today. It's almost 6 hours to print because it's in a higher resolution. So I have to. I think I have four of those ordered already. So those will be printing over the next few days, I believe. So yeah, but for this video, I think it's good. I want to show you about what I've been printing on the changes to the cabinet, and also have tied up the workspace here underneath the table. Now the cables are all just tied up underside the table, and there's no cables on the floor anymore when I'm storing things. So that's really nice and helps out with dust and cat hair collecting in the cables when they were on the floor. They always attract here when cables are wound up on the floor. So that will be a good thing to have taken care of. So that will conclude this video, and I thank you for watching.